So in this video, we are going to learn about implicit intents. So what happens in the previous videos, we have learned about explicit intents, where in the explicit intents, while declaring an explicit intent, we are specifying an activity, which activity to be run. Okay. Whereas in the implicit intents, we do not specify any exact activity to run. So we do not specify any exact activity to run. So instead, what we will give an enough information where which intent to be run, which task we need to perform. So which task we need to perform. So how it is going to do? So Android system manages. So Android system matches with the information what the request in the intent we have been passed. So based on that request, the activity will be, which are the activities will be available on the Android device that can perform the task. Okay. It will perform the task. So if there is only one activity that matches, that activity will be launched. So for example, we will have an n number of activities. For example, if you want to share anything, so if you want to share, so for example, you have a list of videos, you want to watch that videos. So what happens if you click on that video, it will pop-up will be open where which activity you need to launch. It means that which video player in your device, which all the video player is available, from which video player you want to watch the video. So if there is only one, it matches. If it is only matches with the one activity, that particular activity will be launched. So if there are multiple matching activities, what happens? It will provide an chooser app. So user will be presented with an app chooser where the user can pick the particular app to perform the particular task. Okay. So activity register themselves with the system as being able to handle implicit intents. So where what all the implicit intents you are going, that will be managed where the activity should be registered. Where we need to register, that will be registered in the Android manifest file with the intent filters. So intent filters will be should be declared in the Android manifest file. Okay, so there it is going to handle the implicit intents. So what are these intent actions, categories, and data? So implicit intents are exactly like an explicit intents, where in the implicit intents we are not going to specify exact activity to run. So our instances of instance classes. What are all the implicit intents we are going to use? Those are all the instances of the intent class. Okay. So in addition, the implicit intents must have a fields. So the fields should be used by the implicit intents. Which are all those fields we need to use? One is intent action, intent category, and intent and data type. What is this intent action? So it's an action receiving activity should be performed. So the intent action where it is going to perform the receiving activity. So the available intent actions are defined as constants. So intent class has some of the constants, where the intent class will be having the constants where that available intent actions will be there. We can use those intent actions, which are all the constants. So, okay, where the constants will begin with action in the capital letters underscore, it will begin. For example, action underscore view. For example, action underscore view, where if you want to use some of the information where that an activity can show to the users. So if you use the constant action underscore view, where you will be having some of the information where that activity can show to the users, where such as I said, if you want to view the photo, it will show the photos. Where how we need to do, so the actions for an intent in the intent constructor. So intent constructors will be consisting of an actions. Okay, or you can use with the set action method. So the action will be used with the set action method. Next is intent category. So intent category provides information about the category of component that should handle the intent. It means which component should be handled. So which category of component should be handled, what information to be done. So intent categories are optionals. So where if this intent category is optional, if in our app it is required, we need to specify the intent category. So there is no restriction that you should only add one category. So if it is required more than one category, we can add more than one category. So these intent categories are also at constants. Where will these constants will be defined? These constants will be defined in the intent class. Where how we need to begin this intent category means intent category will begin with the capital letters category underscore, or you can add categories to the intent by using a method add category method. Then define the intent category with the add category method. So next is data type. So which indicates MIME type of data the activity should operate on, where this is inferred with the URI intent data field, where it can also be explicitly defined by a method, where this data type can also be explicitly defined by a method called set type. So these are all the three fields that is required in the implicit intent, where we need to specify in the Android manifest file. So these intent action categories and data types will be used both the intent object when you are sending an activity. So these will be used when you are sending an activity. So that intent you will by the intent object. So where these three will be defined in the Android manifest file within the intent filter tag. So these three, this intent action category and data type will be defined in the Android manifest within the intent filter category. The Android system uses this information where these three information will be used to match with the intent request. So what the implicit intent request will be sent to match that request, these three fields should be used. Why should be used? To handle the request, to handle the intent request. These three fields should be used in the intent filter tag. Next is sending implicit intents. So starting activities with implicit intents and passing between those activities, you need to know these three steps. So first step is create a new intent object. First, what we need to do when we are sending an implicit intents. So first step, we need to create an intent object. So second, we need to add information. It means what information, what the request to the intent object we are passing, we need to add that information. So next step is send the intent with start activity or start activity for results. So this start activity method will just start the activity, whereas start activity for result method, it will start the activity and expect the result back from the activity. So that these three steps we need to know while sending an implicit intent. So when you create an implicit intent object, what are all the steps we need to follow? So first step, do not specify the specific activity or other component to launch. It means that when you are creating an intent object, we should not pass the activity within the intent. So it's if you pass the activity within the intent, it becomes explicit intents. So whereas in implicit intents, we should not specify any specific activity to launch. So second, add an intent action, intent category, or both you can add. Second step. So third one is resolve the intent with the system before calling start activity or start activity for result. So last one is optional, that is show an app chooser for the request. Let's see all this one by one. So first one, creating implicit intent objects. How we need to create an implicit intent objects? So implicit intent objects will intent object, new intent constructor. Okay, here. So in the explicit intents, within this we are going to pass an activity, whereas in implicit intents we do not pass, we should not pass any specific activity. So or also you can create intent object by using a specific action. So if you want to perform any specific action with an implicit intent, you can create like this: intent object, new intent. So here we are going to pass an action. So intent dot action view. Intent dot action view. So once you have an intent, so after creating an intent object, so then you can add other information with the intent methods, with the different or various intent methods. So other information like, or if you want a category, or if you want data, or if you want to have an extra, so then you can use all these three. After creating an intent object, you can add the other information. So with the different intent methods. So you have by this sentence we have created the intent object. So intent object, new intent. So then we are going to set the action. What did the previous slide, what I have explained: intent action, intent category, and intent data. See, intent object dot set action. So intent action set, this will send an action to the intent through the intent object. So next, intent object, put extra. So intent dot extra text. If you want to passing an information to the another activity, then you are going to put extra method. Next, send intent dot set type. What type of data you are going to pass? That is set type method you are going to use. So next is resolve the activity. So now we have known, we come to know that we are going to create an information and we are going to pass the information. So next, so we in this, while creating an intent object, in the implicit intents we have not specified any specific activity, and we have used an intent action and intent category. Next, to see how to resolve the intent before calling the method start activity and start activity for results. So what is this, the resolve the intent? So what does this resolve the activity before starting means? For example, you have a list of videos, you want to view that video. See, for example, in your Android device, if there is no app or no activity to view the content, so it will throw an error. So that error will occur. So in those cases, what we need to do? We need to resolve that activity. So how to resolve that activity? To verify that an activity or other component is available to receive your intent. So it means whatever the request has been sent, that intent will get the receive. So we'll receive those requests and check whether that particular activity is there to launch the task, to perform the particular task. So if it is not there, it will throw an error. To resolve that, we will use a method resolve activity method. We will use a method resolve activity method. So with the system package manager. So along with the system package manager, we will use resolve activity method. So how we need to use? If the intent object, whatever the intent object we have been created with the intent object dot resolve activity get package manager is not equal to null, then if it is not equal to null, then start activity chooser. Start activity chooser. So if by implementing these lines in your code, in your app, what does it do? So it will check whether the package manager is null or not. So if it is not equal to null, then the particular chooser will enable for the user to perform the task. So otherwise it will throw in. To manage that error, we need to use this code. So if the result of resolve activity is not null, then there is at least one app available. So whatever the request has been sent through the implicit intent, so if there is at least one app, so if by this line of code, if it is not equal to null, then it will show that at least there is a one app available in the device, so that it can handle the intent and it can call the start activity method. So we need, as a developer, we should remember that we should not send the intent if the result is null. We should not send the intent if the result is null. So if the result is null, means there is no particular app available on the device to handle the intent. So what is this show app chooser? So almost all we will see that if you see, for example, if you want to watch a video, okay, so if you click on that video, it will show with the list of options. So it will show with the list of options, open with, whether you want to open that particular video in MX player or photos or any video player or VLC. So all these are within the Android device. So it will show the options from which app we need to play that video. So here is a sample code how it is going to handle. So first is implicit intent object. So we are going to create an intent object with the passing an intent action, intent dot action send. Next is always use string resources for UI text. So if you are using an UI text, you should use string resources, string title, get resource dot get string, r dot string dot chooser underscore title. Then you need to wrap that intent to show the dialog. So to show the chooser dialog, how we are going to wrap that intent? So for the intent, use an object chooser, intent dot create chooser, send intent, whatever the intent object you have been created here, you are passing those action, whatever the action is, you are going to pass with the string resources. So then after that, you are going to resolve the intent. So when you are going to resolve the intent, before starting an activity only, it should resolve the intent. So resolve the intent means you need to check whether there is an activity to perform that particular task or not. Okay, so send intent dot resolved activity, get package and manager. Package manager is not equal to null. Then if it is not equal to null, then this particular method will going to execute. Start activity method will be called. So if this method will be called, this option will be shown to perform the task. So next is receiving implicit intent. So what is this receiving implicit intent? So if we want an activity in our app to respond to implicit intents, declare one or more filters in the Android manifest. So whatever the request has been sent through the intent objects, so we need to get the response from the implicit intents. So if the user wants to manage one or more response through the implicit intents, so you need to declare one or more intent filters in the Android manifest. So each intent filter specifies the type of intents it accepts based on the intent action data category. So it means that, so whatever the action, whatever the category or the data we have been used based on the intent action data and category, so it accepts the type of intents in the intent field what you have been specified in the intent filter. So if you have two intent filters in the Android manifest file, so each intent filter tells that what type of intent it is going to accept. It means what type of intents that particular activity is going to accept. So how it is going to accept? So the accept is based on what action you have been specified in the intent filter, what category have been specified in the intent filter, what type of data to handle. that has been specified in the intent filter, so that the system will deliver an implicit intent to the app component only if that intent can pass through one of the intent. So let's see what happens once an activity is successfully launched. See, you have been sent a request and you have been got the app chooser, you have selected an app. So what after successfully launch an implicit intent, we can handle the intent and its data. How we are going to handle those data and intent? So first step is getting the intent data or extra, getting the intent data or extra out of that intent. Second is performing the task, the intent requested, performing the task, the intent requested. The third is returning your explicit intent. Next is data to be calling activity with another intent if needed. Okay, so first we need to get the intent by the get intent method. Second one is getting the intent data. The third one is performing the task that is requested. The next is returning data. So returning the data. So what this intent filters? So as I specified, you need to specify you can specify one or more intent filters in the Android manifest file, where each intent filter specifies what type of intents it is going to accept. So how it is going to accept based on the action category and the data. So let's see the intent filters. So define the intent filters with one or more intent filter elements, where you are going to specify these intent filter elements in the manifest file. So nested in the corresponding activity element. These intent filters will be specified within the activity element. So within the intent filters, specify the type of intents your activity can handle. See, in the intent filters, we are going to specify what type of intents our activity can handle. Okay, there that type of intents will be specified in the intent filters. What this Android system will do? The Android system matches an implicit intent with an activity with the intent object or that you have been specified in the intent filters. So what the intent filters will contain? Intent filter contains three elements, that is action, data, category, so which corresponds to the fields in the intent object described. So first one is action, data, category. So what is this action? It's an intent action. What type of action it is going to perform? So next is data. So what type of data it is going to accept, including MIME type or any attributes of the URI, whereas scheme, host, if you have any path, or if you want to pass the path or host or port. Next is category. So what type of category it is going to handle. So next, see, this is how we are going to declare. So intent filter, within that you are going to specify action category, whereas this data, what is this data is an optional. If it is required for your particular activity in your app, then you can declare the data, otherwise it's an optional. Intent. So this is within the intent filter, we are going to specify the action and the category. So in this code, the action element specifies the main entry point to the application. So this tells that this is the main entry point for the application where it is going to launch. So the category specifies the activity that should be listed in the system's application launcher. So it is that particular activity is going to launch to the category. See another example here. Yes, another example here. So activity, the name of the activity, that is share activity. So within that we have been specified the intent filter. So within the intent filter we have specified action field, category field and data field. So in the action field we are going to send the request. Next category we are specifying it as a default, and the data type is, it will be maybe a text or plain. So the Android system tests the implicit intents against these intent filters by comparing the parts or the fields what we have been used within the intent filters. So what is this action? Let's study individually that action, category and data. So what is this action? So action filter may contain or may not contain. We can declare it or we cannot. If we want, we can declare, or if it is not necessary, there is no need to specify this action field. So an intent filter can declare 0 or more action elements for the intent action. So if we want to perform more actions on the same activity, we can declare one or more action elements within the intent filter, where the action is defined in the name attribute. So action is defined in the name attribute and consists of string android.intent.action along with this name of the intent action, that is action, the prefix will be action underscore. Okay, so here in this example within the intent filter you have a two action with the name attribute, where one is to perform edit and one is to perform view. So one action is to perform edit in your activity, one action is to perform to view within the activity. To get through this filter, the action specified in the incoming intent object must match at least one action. So it means that, so whatever the action you have been specified, it has to match with the incoming intent object, what the request is getting. So it has to match with the request, match with the intent object, what the intent object request has been passed. So it has to match with that particular intent object, where for at least one action, what action we have been specified, it has to match with any one of the action. So if you have specified only one action, compulsorily it has to match with that particular action. So if you have specified one or more actions within the intent filter, it has to match with the any one of the action. So must include at least one intent action for an incoming implicit intent to match. So if there is any incoming implicit intent, it has to match with the action. At least we need to specify one intent action within the intent filter. Next is category. So here also the category can contain 0 or more category elements, where these category elements will be there. These category elements will be there in the intent filter. So these categories for the intent category, what type of category we need to specify. The category is defined in the name attribute. So as same as the action, in the action also we will be defining the action in the name attribute. Here also in the category also we will define the name attribute, where this category name attribute contains string, that is android.intent.category. So along with that, name of the intent category, where it starts with the prefix category. Okay, so here is an example. So here in this example there is two category with the name attribute, where first category is default and second category is browsable. What category you want to perform? So all the activities that you want to accept the implicit intent must include default. See, for example, in your activity, if you want to accept all the implicit intent within that particular app, then compulsorily we need to specify the intent filter with the category and the name attribute, that is android.intent.category default. So this category is applied to all implicit intent objects by the Android system. So next element is data. So this data is optional, where this data element you can declare one or more data element within the intent filter, where these data elements for URI content intent data. So if you have any URI content intent data, then we can go for a data elements. As the data intent consists, so the intent data consists URI and optional MIME type. So it has the following aspects of the data, where you can create an intent filter for various aspects that the data. So there will be so many types of data. If you want to handle those type of data through the data element, you can have a URI scheme, URI host, URI path, MIME type. So if you have any path, then you are going to use with the URI path. If you have particular host, we want to send the request for a particular host, then you are going to use an URI host. If you have any particular scheme or a path, then you can go for URI scheme. Or if you have any string type or a plain text, then you can go for a MIME type. So in this below example, there are two data elements within the intent filters with the MIME type. See, if you have any video or MPEG, or if you have any audio or MPEG, then you are going to declare in the data element. Data element. So next is share data with ShareCompact.IntentBuilder. ShareCompact.IntentBuilder. So what this, see, we can do share actions as easy as a user shares the items. So share actions are easy way for users to share items within an app or the other app. So how the user can use this easily? Sharing data. So for that, you can do what? So as we learned in the previous slides, you can build a share action through the implicit intents with the constant action underscore send. So as I said in the previous slides, see in these actions, you can have a send data. See, send. You can have this, where the Android provides an helper class where we can easily implement sharing in our app with the helper class ShareCompact.IntentBuilder. See, for the apps that target Android releases after API 14, see, whichever the app has been developed by targeting the Android release after API 14, you can use share action provider class. You can use share action provider class for share actions instead of ShareCompact.IntentBuilder. So instead of using ShareCompact.IntentBuilder, we can use share action provider. So if your apps has been target of Android release API 14, the ShareCompact class is a part of V4 support library. We will learn these support libraries in the coming videos. Okay. So ShareCompact class is a part of V4 support library, where it allows to provide share actions in your app and also backward compatibility fashion. So it has to support the previous versions of the Android also. So what this ShareCompact.IntentBuilder class do not need to create or send an implicit intent. So if we use ShareCompact.IntentBuilder class, where if we use this class, then there is no necessity to create an implicit intent or to send an implicit intent for performing a share action. So instead of creating implicit intents for create and send, we can use the method which is available in the ShareCompact.IntentBuilder to indicate the data you want to share. So if you want to share, if you want to perform a share action, so instead of creating an implicit intent or instead of creating sending an implicit intent, directly we can use a method which is available in the class ShareCompact.IntentBuilder. So first, we need to start with the form method to create a new intent builder. So if you want to create a new intent builder, we need to use form method. We need to use form method and the other methods to add more data. If you want to add a more data, we need to use other methods also. And after using whichever the methods are necessary, at the end of the code, we need to use start chooser method to create and send the intent. To create and send the intent. So ShareCompact dot intent builder, ShareCompact dot intent builder. From this means the context information about the calling activity. So whichever you want to call the activity, that information is going to pass within the form method. Set a type MIME type. So MIME type for data. So if you are having a data, then you go for a set type of MIME type. Set chooser title. Share this text with. So title for the app chooser. So what title you want to give when your dial app chooser will appear on the screen. So that is the set chooser title. Then set text. So intent data. Here we are going to pass the what type of intent data. Next is start chooser is going to send the intent. So this is about sending the implicit intents, receiving the implicit intents, and using the ShareCompact.IntentBuilder instead of implicit intent to perform the action.